Welcome back to One Comic Book a Day, where we're covering Superman number 41, and the second story, Clark Kent's Bodyguard. A story that sets up like 2 to 4 other compelling stories and then doesn't go through with them. I actually kind of like this story in the sense that it's frustrating and kind of fun to talk about what it could have been or what they were doing with it, and then chose to do not that. Like, really, I'm surprisingly giddy about this story, and it's not particularly a very good story. So in the beginning of this story, Lois accidentally falls down an empty elevator shaft that happens to be at the Daily Planet. God only knows why the elevator shaft was empty, and there was no signage to tell her this. This sets off Superman to complain that she's always putting herself in danger and seems to have like no caution or any sort of sense of survival. She always just kind of relies on Superman saving her, which is dangerous because he can't always be there to save her, even though he will always be there to save her. And I like this idea for a Superman story. That's interesting. You either have like the setup of Lois learning a lesson about, actually taking care of herself and not put herself in harm's way, except that would make Lois a less interesting character. So maybe it's a story about Superman accepting Lois for who she is, and maybe that is just what makes Lois great and why he's in love with her. Neither of those things happen. No. Perry overhears Superman talking down to her, so he hires both her and Clark, don't know why Clark got thrown into this, a bodyguard. This bodyguard is a brutish man by the name of Malarkey. Okay, so now Malarkey seems to be only following Clark. In fact, Lois basically disappears for most of the rest of the story. So it's not about Lois. Forget everything about Lois. Why did we even spend all that time with what Lois was doing and why Superman was annoyed with her? No, it has nothing to do with the story. It was a cold open. It's like The Simpsons first act. It has nothing to do with the rest of the story. Now Malarkey is following Clark, and Clark is having trouble changing into Superman with a guy watching him like a hawk. So is that the story? Is it about Superman having to try to figure out a way to get away from Malarkey to save people? Once again, no, that is not the setup of this comic. So what then is the story of Clark Kent Bodyguard? Well, it's about Malarkey being an absolute buffoon and incompetent. Malarkey almost actually gets Clark killed by slipping on a banana peel and accidentally pushing him into the water off a bridge. And Superman, Clark, has to save them both, but for some reason Malarkey still seems to think he was the one who did the saving. And that's the one moment of that. We get through that pretty quickly. So he's trying to get rid of Malarkey, first by trying to make him a boxer, but his attempt goes really badly because he boxes him, and Clark should be easily defeated by him, even if Superman's just pretending that he is being easily defeated by him. But Malarkey keeps almost accidentally knocking himself out. And the fight ends up having to end in a draw, which does nothing for Malarkey. So, left to his only decision, he hires Malarkey as Superman's bodyguard. So Malarkey, by the end of the story, or after the story, is always somewhere trying to keep up with Superman to protect him. I don't know who's paying him. Depending on the issue, Clark Kent Superman doesn't have money. Sometimes he has a lot of money. Sometimes he has no money. Honestly, what is he spending the money on? He doesn't need to eat. And arguably, he doesn't need to live anywhere. He has that weird fortress up in the mountains outside of Metropolis. But yeah, it's just so weird. Like, not weird in a David Lynch sort of way, but just the weirdest, oddest, baffling story decisions. Like, it sets up 3 to 4 different stories before it actually gets to its real story. And that didn't have to need that much work to get to it. It actually almost feels like what my college professor would talk about when we would write essays: stream of consciousness, conclusion. This feels like a stream of consciousness until they got to the part where it's about an incompetent bodyguard. And I just why wasn't the story like that for most of it? Why did we waste so much time on what felt like other stories before we got to this one? Okay, that is it from Superman number 41, Clark Kent's Bodyguard. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes up. I do this Monday through Friday, but Fridays is Bat Friday, where I cover a Batman story in either Detective Comics or Batman. And until next time, let's ponder the question, whatever did happen to the Man of Tomorrow? And do you think Malarkey's still out there? Is it time to do a malarkey story to, like, actually deal with this? This feels like something Grant Morrison would have brought back. I would read that comic. Okay, have a great day.